Hey everyone, I'm Spencer.
I'm Lara, and we're married with board games. You know how at parties there's that one person who is extremely late, but they arrive confidently and have fun anyway? Well, that's us with Lost Cities from KOSMOS.
For a game that's been around since 1999 and we're just now getting around to playing it, yes, you could say we're late to the party. But something to take away from that is, the game's been around since 1999.
This tells us one of two things. Either it's really good and people love playing it, or the publisher just won't let it die. We're here to find out which is the case. But first, a quick overview on how to play.
Here I've set up for Lost Cities. Now again, this is only a two-player game, so this is going to be how you set up every single time. There's a board in the middle, and you've got a deck of cards. Each player starts out with a hand of 8 cards. Now, the object of the game is to thematically, you're forming expedition routes that at the end of each round you're going to be subtracting expedition costs from your expeditions, and then basically you're trying to get as many points as possible by the time you subtract those expedition costs. Well, how do you do that? Turn structure is very simple. You are going to basically place a card in a column and then draw a card. Let's see what I started out with. So here is a hand of cards. You can see they have different numbers on them. Some have this handshake agreement on them, and they are going to be different steps in an expedition of different types. So the green expedition is going to be more jungle oriented. The white expedition is going to be more like in the Antarctic. You get the idea. What you're trying to do is create columns of the different expeditions in increasing order. Each expedition that you start is going to cost you 20 points, or dollars if you want to think of it that way. So even if you place one card down, that's a 2, say for example, and that's all you put down for that round, you're going to end up with 2 minus 20. So you're going to end up with negative 18 points. So you have to be real strategic about what cards you place down. You don't have to do every single row, because if you don't start an expedition, you don't lose any points. You just end up with a 0 for that column. But what you'll be doing is you'll be making columns in the same color. So I'll be doing something like that through my turns. So like I said, you'll place a card and then draw a card. Actually, I should have 2 cards since I've already placed 2 down. And you're doing this taking turns. So I place a card, I draw one. Then Lara will place a card, then she'll draw one. Another example is, you don't have to start at 2. So here for the green expedition, I can put down a 4, draw a card, and on my next turn, oh look, I just drew a 5, perfect. Then I'll draw a card, and then on my next turn, look, I can put down this 7. The cards are numbered 2 through 10, so the highest you could go through is 10. And there are no duplicates in each color. So there aren't 2 7s, there aren't 2 5s, there's only one of each number. One thing that you can do is before you start an expedition, you can slide one of these agreement cards down first before you put any of the other cards down. And what that will do is it will double your amount of points that you get for that expedition. Be careful though, because if you end up with a negative number, yes, it's going to double your negative. You could feasibly put up to 3 of these, so you could end up quadrupling your points for that particular expedition. As I said, you don't have to do a particular one, so if you don't think you have the cards to get to 20 in one of the rows, you don't have to begin it. If you have a card that you don't want to play down, but you need to empty your hand so that you can draw something else, you can instead choose to discard it on the matching space on the board. The next time you were to draw a card, you can choose to draw from the deck or from what's on the board. So again, you've got to be careful about what you put down there, because you may be putting something down that your opponent needs. This is how the game will go. You'll go back and forth, putting cards down or discarding them and continuing to draw new cards. And then, so let's just say that at the end of this particular round, this is the state I'm left with. It's a very, very basic example, but I want to show you how scoring works. The particular round is over once the deck of cards is all gone. So as soon as the last card is drawn, you stop. You don't get to even do anything with it. That's just the end of that particular round. Then it's time for scoring. First thing you'll do is you'll total up the points in each row. So here I've got 12 points. And then I have to subtract 20. So I'm going to end up with -8 for this expedition because I didn't put enough cards in here. In this expedition, I have 16 points. Then I subtract 20. So I end up with -4. And now they're doubled because of the handshake agreement. So I've got -8 like this one. Finally, over here for the yellow expedition, I only have a 10. So I'm going to end up with -10 points. So you can see how you really have to be careful about starting expeditions, making sure you can finish them, so that you don't end up with negative points. If you happen to have 8 cards in a column, you get a bonus of 20 points in addition to the number that you already have. So that's another thing you can work towards, is getting those 8 cards in a row. Once you've totaled up the points for that game, you clear the board and you start again. And so basically, the rules tell you to play through 3 rounds, and whoever has the most points at the end of that wins. Obviously, you can choose to only do 1 if you want to, but sometimes it takes that first game or 2 to really get going and figure out what you're doing. But that's basically it. Play a card in a column or on the board, and then draw a card until all of the cards are gone, and then you total up your points. Alright, so Lost Cities. On the surface, not much to it.
So true.
But
when you just tell people how to play. Oh, okay.
But I'm excited to get into this.
Yes.
First of all, let's start with the art.
Yes.
What I think is really neat is that the art on these cards tell a story.
Right, it progresses through the adventure, the expedition.
Yeah, so in theory, if you were to collect all the cards in each column, you'd have a step-by-step chapter of your expedition, ending with the discovery of this thing you're trying to find, which is really cool. And it's well done art. And really, that's really all you have here with this game is the art on the cards. And you've got that board, which really, I mean, it's nice to have because it does kind of keep things organized. But when it comes down to it, you could really play the game without the board. But it is nice to have a place to put those
a reference
cards.
point.
Definitely, for sure.
I agree.
But having said that, on those cards, I feel like you might need some sleeves.
Why do you say that?
Well, I've noticed that after, the times that we've played it, which we haven't played it out, but we've played it enough, I can notice on the edges they're kind of fraying just a little bit.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because you are shuffling them a lot.
Yeah, you are shuffling a lot, and you're moving them around quite a bit. And so, if that's not something you care about, then fine. But if you plan on playing this game a lot, which we do because, well, I don't want to get into that yet.
It's super cool.
Yeah, it's super cool. You might need some sleeves. Just note.
I think, okay, yeah.
They're not high quality cards that I can foresee lasting a long time.
Okay, fair point.
All right?
Definitely.
Okay, what do you think of the theme on this game? Is it a pasted on theme? Is it a theme with a nice connection? What are your thoughts?
I think it's very subtle.
Yes.
Theme. Because of the wagers, with the, you have to think back to this, there was an era, where this was the big deal, the hip thing, the dangerous thing, the daring cool thing. And so to be that adventurer, explorer, going out to find these things, they might make wagers, place bets on whether or not they would actually succeed.
Yeah.
And I think that definitely fits into this game and adds to the game. And so, and on top of that, therefore, like we've already talked about the art, you progress through the adventure and you're trying to find your way to that lost city.
Yeah.
And also, like we've talked about on our podcast review of this, you might have some of the cards for that adventure and you might see your opponent is putting that color or that suit adventure cards down. You might not want to put that card out there just because if you knew the way to go find this thing, but you were busy taking care of this, you didn't have all the equipment, supplies, all the cards in that suit to actually go after it, you wouldn't tell them the way. So
there's a little bit of competition between expedition companies, is what you're saying.
Yes, and I found that in the theme, and I thought that was really cool.
So yeah, if you think about it, what you're doing, the presentation of the game, it can be very thematic, which is really neat, and I like that. You can kind of make it what you want it to be.
Well, and even with the way that the draw deck runs out, you're running out of time to find this thing.
Yeah, that is cool. I didn't think about that, but that's you're absolutely right on that. All right, so you talk about the draw deck. This game is actually on the surface very simple.
Right.
What are you doing? You're playing.
Okay, you've got a hand of 8 cards.
Yep.
You play a card down, and you draw a card.
And that's it.
Right.
And you've got to stack your cards by color, in order.
Ascending order.
And you can't ever slide one in. But very simple. But give it time, because you're going to discover quite a bit that's going on here.
First of all, I think that it's very important with that. You need to tell your opponent at the beginning that there is a cost to these adventures. Each column that you work on, there will be 20 points deducted from that when it's all totaled up.
Yeah.
I did not know that at the beginning.
As soon as you start it, if you decide to start on an expedition,
you
it
need to
costs
be
money.
able to get over 20 because you're going to have 20 points deducted. I didn't know that at the beginning, and that's how I did so poorly.
Oops.
Some people don't think that's important.
Could have sworn I told you that.
But it is. No, not until the scoring round, the first round. You went, so now you deduct 20 points. What? Because that's the cost of the expedition. Again, also thematic, because you have to put capital, you have to put money up front.
That's true.
To deduct later, and then you find out what you've actually earned from that adventure.
Yeah. Well, what I like is that you've got these early decisions that you essentially have to make.
Oh, I know.
You have to
of
right
whether
off
you're going to wager or not.
Well, you got whether you're going to wager. With this hand of 8 cards, you got to decide now. Okay, maybe I might have the cards to be successful in one of these. So your early decisions have these lasting effects.
Right. If you even start the expedition, because there's no harm, no foul in not ever laying any cards down in a suit. You can just forego it, and it will not hurt your score at all. But if you put something down, you better be ready to complete it, because you're going to lose some points that way.
Right. And not only that, but you don't have to play all 8, all 10, well, no, it'd be 9 cards because you're doing 2 through 10.
Very true.
You don't have to play all of those.
And that's something that I learned quickly of don't try to fill all that out. Just get as many points as you can.
To at least get to 20, so that you at least break even.
Right.
But, that's, again, you've got this time aspect where, okay, if I'm spending all my turns to fill up one column, I'm neglecting these other columns
that you may have laid a card or 2 down on.
Right. So
now
again,
that's going to cost you.
Those early decisions of, oh, well, I'm going to just go after green, and then maybe later on, no, you got to balance out what you're going on, which is really cool.
Since there are no duplicates of the cards, it is pretty slim chance that you're going to get every card in that suit.
Right.
Because your opponent will get them, and if they see you going on that adventure, odds are they probably will not let those cards go so as to sabotage you.
Yeah. So we've talked about the wager, which again is part of those early decisions of...
Yes, you have to lay those down first.
Yeah. And, those can be very instrumental in getting you an awesome amount of points.
Or a colossal loss.
Yes. But it's really cool to have that choice.
Yes.
I feel like there's a pressure luck element to this game too.
Definitely.
Where you're pressing your luck of
maybe you've got some of those bigger numbers in your hand and you're waiting to see if you can get one of those smaller ones first before you put the bigger number down.
Or if you take your chance and go ahead, surely I'll draw at least one more red card. No.
Sometimes that doesn't happen.
Yeah. And I feel like the tendency, at least for me, I don't know if you found this, but the tendency for me was to begin the game was just focusing on what I'm doing.
I knew the very first game that we played, yes, that's how it was. After that, that's when I learned I can't do that. You've got to, especially with how quick the turns are, it's fairly simple to be able to keep up with what your opponent is doing. So, don't check out and start counting stuff while your opponent's going. Pay attention to what they're doing. Which
is great because, some games have that solitaire aspect of it, like a 2-player solitaire almost, like I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and then my players get, and then whoever has the most points at the end of the game wins. No, you really have to focus on what your other player is doing. You are competing head to head on this. Yeah, I agree with that. And I like that. And you have to be watching for when to play the right card. Right. Especially... if you're going for the same suit. I think that's a big one. Or if you're not going for the same suit, but you need to get that card out of your hand. Yeah. I definitely wouldn't want to put the next card down that you need in that color. Exactly. Well, that's the thing is you can wait until you see what your opponent puts down. That timing is everything. So you can say, oh, he put down the 3, now I can discard my 2. Yep, and I've totally done that to you. And I was like, I needed that.
Just like I started on one and then you started laying out all the wager cards for that one.
Yep.
Yeah, you were great at that.
But going along with that timing, I think it's really neat how the deck controls the time of this game.
At first it just feels like you're shooting the breeze, you're just going, and it happens very quickly that the tides turn and we only have about 10 cards left in that deck.
Yeah.
And it's going fast.
Yeah. But it's cool. It is cool though that you at least have, kind of a visual too.
Right.
That you can look at, and it gives you that cue of, okay, I really need to start wrapping things up here. Well,
and in that time, again, like we've said about, you might not be able to get all the cards for a suit down. That's when you might have to decide finally, I'm not going to make it. I shouldn't keep waiting. I'm just going to put down my 10, my biggest, or my 9, whatever the biggest number you've got in that suit is, and move on to try to complete your other ones.
Yeah.
Instead of waiting for the big ones to come out because you're running out of time.
Right.
Definitely.
Exactly. There is one thing that I will say that is a little tricky, and that is the scoring.
Right.
The rule book lays it out just fine, and there's a nice example on the back, but on the back of the rule book. But it would be nice to have some kind of a score pad or something, because essentially you have to draw out your own score pad. And it just makes it a little bit clunky to calculate all those scores because you're doing all this math.
Well, and you're doing 3 rounds.
Who wants to do math? Yeah. You've got to add up the points that you have. You got to subtract 20, and then you got to multiply it if you have any wagers. Then you got to do that for each of your columns that you have. Again, it's not difficult math, but like I said, it would be nice to have some kind of visual that you can ride on to lay that all out.
It took me a couple of times to get that rhythm. Add them up, subtract the cost, multiply the wagers. That's my final score for that round.
Well, and then add the bonus of if you get 8 cards.
Well, I've never gotten that.
I think I have one time.
So, well, good for you. I've never experienced that. But going along with that, if you're consistently playing this as a couple, and therefore after that, if you splinter off with another person from that couple, I think then you've got that rhythm.
Yeah.
So dovetailing off of that, this is a good game for couples.
Oh, I agree. I don't feel like there's too much like head-to-head, in your face, messing with you.
Right. I don't think it's anything that anybody could get I don't think it's anything that could ruin a marriage. I'll say that. I don't think it's anything that would ruin a dating relationship either. No. It would just be a fun little sticking point. Yeah, just like little, you got me on that one, but I can get you on the next one,
It really could be being 2 players, being quick, not too much. Yeah, I think it really is a great game for couples.
It definitely is. Right. Yeah. So then bottom line from us is there's more than meets the eye in Lost Cities, and we find it to be a very engaging game that keeps us coming back for more.
So back to our opening thoughts. It's obvious why the game is still around. It's so good! For such a simple game, there's so many layers of strategy to uncover.
And it really is a great game for couples. Sure, you can block and thwart your opponent, but there's not too much direct conflict to where we'd see it as a problem in most relationships.
For its simplicity, but layers of strategy, we give Lost Cities a rating of 8 and a seal of excellence. We also mark it as couple approved. If you're like us and are late to the party on this one, check it out.
We're going to box this one up for now. If you want to party with us on social media, be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at MarriedWithBG.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.